Hey, sports fans, this is Rich Flaherty here with your TFL Week 1 results show. What a very interesting week we had. We had some humongous individual player scorings, especially with one defense. We had some mild upsets and we had a couple of blowouts. So let's go ahead and go to the headlines and let's take a look what happened this week. Headline number 1. New nickname for Tyreek is Tin Man as he leads Oz past Venus to the Sun with 120 points. Despite losing Rodgers and a goose egg from Kirk, somehow Cher wins a low-scoring affair with Halfway House. The Sofa G-Men shake off the New York G-Men debacle on Sunday night and complete the Monday comeback, defeating Hang. Girls on the Beach rides that Cowboy defense to a blowout over Huck. MVH rides Diggs on Monday night to pull out the comeback victory. No Way in Hell Hall adds another top 10 lowest scoring combined scores between two teams on the game for games to their list. This time it was ED, and combined between the two of them, they only scored 102 points. It's amazing. No Way in Hell Hall now has been involved in 6 of the top 10 all-time lowest scorers by two teams, and now has 3 of the top 6. But this time they won, and they have won other ones, but this time they did win. And speaking of low scoring, what happened to Sofa overall? The 2023 Week 1 was almost historic. Despite having 200-plus teams, the total league score for Week 1 was only 889 points. That is the second lowest point total ever for Week 1, all the way back to 2006. It's the only one of 3 times where Sofa has scored under 900 points in a week. So pretty incredible week overall. So let's go to the games. Game number 1 was that Oz didn't give nothing to the Tin Man versus Venus. This was supposed to be a very close game. CBS, the original number, had it at 76.77 for Oz to 76.49 for Venus. TFL had it a little higher scoring, a little bit difference, 91.9 for Oz and 88.4 for Venus. But Oz didn't get. I guess Oz did get something from did give something to the Tin Man. He gave him rocket boosters as Tyreek Hill went for 33 total points. And Tony Pollard had what looked like was a crappy game, but somehow in the second half came out with 2 TDs, got 70 yards and 20 points. And that 53 points alone was almost enough to beat Venus as Oz went on to win 120-71. Game number 2 was the Louisville Share versus the Halfway House. It's amazing. You'd think that a 69-48 game would be our lowest scoring game, but it wasn't. And really it's amazing that Louisville Share getting a big goose egg from Aaron Rodgers' injury and a goose egg from Christian Kirk, who was at least a catching and yardage machine last year for Jacksonville. They still were able to pull out the victory, mainly because, honestly, Halfway House just sucks. They only got 48 points. They got 12 points from Hurts, so that was an anomaly. He shouldn't get 12 points every week. They got 13 points from the Jaguars, and every other individual position that they had all scored under 7. And so Louisville Share goes to 1-0 with a 69-48 victory. Game number 3 was probably the game of the week. It was G-Men versus Hang. And G-Men were slightly favored by CBS. They were more favored, and this was actually could have been our blowout of the week as they were a 7.5 point favorite by TFL. And they needed every Monday night point that they got, even though Josh Allen totally sucked on Monday night. But they did get 9 points from him, and they needed Tyler Bass's that 50-yard field goal at the end to tie the end of the game to actually pull out the victory as they win 83-80 over Hang. And that's despite Hang getting 22 points from 22 points from CMC, Christian McCaffrey, and 21 points from Herbert. But again, I did mention this in the preview, and I should have mentioned it was my fault. We did have the McCaffrey versus Eckler contest here. Honestly, I would have said whichever one scored the most was probably going to win. In that case, it would have been Hang pulling out a close victory, but actually, G-Men with the 21 points from Eckler pulled out the 83-80 victory. So congratulations to G-Men who go to again who overcome their poor New York Giants G-Men loss to pull out the victory here in SoFa. And a game number 4, and this was the low scoring game, as I mentioned, 102 total points. In this game total, we only had 3 double digit scores, and that was all on the No Way in Hell Hall side. And it wasn't even their best players. It was Mike Evans who they threw in there at the last minute, probably on the suggestion by TFL that they needed to think about who they had in their flex spot, and then because they had Swift. They had DeAndre Swift in there, and they got 10 from their kicker and 10 and 12 from their defense. ED 43 total points. They were forecast to go 71. They only get 43, so just barely over half. And they got single digit scoring from every position plus 0 points from Higgins. So they only score 43, and No Way in Hell pulls off the slap fight 59-43, even though CBS had it as a 74-71 victory for No Way in Hell Hall, and TFL had it as a 88-86 victory for ED. Boy, these teams, who knows what's going to happen with these two? They may be already heading for the toilet bowl along with Halfway House. Game number 5 was Girls on the Beach against Huckleberry. And Girls on the Beach, who would have guessed 40 points from the Dallas defense against the Giants on Sunday night in New York. Now, granted, it was a crappy weather day, so you have to put a little bit of that in. But typically, crappy weather days don't necessarily always help the defense. A lot of times, they help the offensive players because the offensive players know where they're going. Defensive players don't tend. But God, Daniel Jones just was awful, awful. He was awful. Whoever has Daniel Jones, I didn't even look, should drop him immediately. That way, actually, I could probably pick him up. But regardless of that. So again, 40 points from the Cowboys D, 18 points from Trevor Lawrence. Although they passed on starting Tua and would have gotten 28 points from Tua. But again, they didn't need it. They pulled off the 109-78 victory over Huckleberry, despite Huckleberry getting 24 points from Brendan Ayuk from the Niners. And the beauty of them was the Robinson trio, Brian and Bijan. They got 24 points total plus Montgomery. So despite getting 13, 13, and 11 from their 3 running backs from Huckleberry, they couldn't pull out the victory. They lose 109-78. The amazing thing is if the Cowboys had just scored what they were forecasted, which was 9 points, this game would have ended in a tie. But Girls on the Beach goes to 1-0, and they actually went 1-0 and went against the TFL curse to pull out that victory. And then our last game was the Fat against MVH. Let's see. CBS had this as a 76 or 79.49 to 76.38. I guess a victory for MVH. TFL had it the opposite way. We had 91.2 for the Fat, 84.4 for MVH. So obviously, in TFL's eyes, these two teams did not live up to expectations at all. But again, I will give it to CBS. CBS did at least forecast correctly and did a better job on the total points for the two teams as MVH got 19 from Mahomes on a bad night, but got the 16 points from Diggs last night that they needed to pull out the 76-63 victory for MVH, who moved to 1-0. Now, I will give props to CBS overall because when I looked at CBS numbers, their predictions, I thought, these numbers are so dang low. What's going on with CBS? Typically they are so overinflated, but their algorithms must be doing a better job. And in general, as I mentioned, the scoring was so low that CBS was actually a lot more accurate with regards to the points. And in this week, they did actually do better than TFL. So we will work on our points next week, work on our predictions next week to hopefully do a better job. But again, great week. Congratulations to all the winners. I'm sorry to the teams that scored below 50, the two of you. And hopefully, you two will also do better this week. And we'll watch a little bit later in the week for the recap and kickoff of TFL, looking at the draft and looking at the divisions. That'll be coming out later in the week. And then obviously, the TFL preview show will come out on Thursday. Thanks so much. Hope everybody enjoyed the show, and good luck this week.